How's it going, everyone? Welcome to the Wrestling is Awesome podcast with your host, Alec Pecado, and co host, Bradley Walker. We are part of the NGSE Sports Network, NGSE.com. Apologize for the late start. We had some technical difficulties on my end, but we are reviewing AEW Dynamite today and talking about some future feuds we want to see in AEW. So let's get started, shall we? So I that opening segment of Dynamite was wild with
Yes.
Moxley and you know what? I know we dog on Marina Shafir, but she did the right thing there, taking Renee Paquette and sort of removing her from the situation.
Well, being that Moxley is her husband, that's a good idea to get her out of harm's way. But yeah.
Yeah. And then, to say the least, Moxley's scared of Adam Copeland.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
I think that's why he said no to the title match. It's because he's scared, because he knows Cope would beat him.
Yep. I agree with that. I agree.
I do think that their match for Australia, Cope and Jay White, I think they're going to have a tag team match with Claudio and Mox.
Moxley? Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be what Jay White said is he wants no rules, which you're playing with fire, if you ask me. Giving the Death Riders no rules, that's getting a little. You're playing with big time playing with fire. So then we get to the opening match between Will Ospreay and a unknown member of the Don Callis family, which happens to be one of Will Ospreay's really good friends and Mark Davis.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, I cannot listen to the TV when Don Callis is talking. I can't. It's like listening to Triple H when he was in the Authority. He has that annoying voice. It's like it's irritating. And you can tell all he's lying. Like he's not even telling the truth when he talks. It's just lying.
Do you think that it's set up that way for him to do that just to kind of rile the crowd up? You know what I mean? Is it you think it's got something to do with that?
Possibly. But I also think that I don't think Mark Davis is really a part of the Callis family. I think the only reason he took the match was Don Callis slid him a bunch of cash onto the table and said, "Here, you be my hired hitman to take out Will Ospreay before our match against him next Saturday at Grand Slam Australia." That's my theory on why Mark Davis went against Will Ospreay. Don't get me wrong, it was a good match. But of course, you know, the heel that Mark Davis is, he tried to cheat. He exposed the turnbuckle. And
yep,
that is the most heelish thing to do. Then we get to, so Will Ospreay ends up winning. And he brings out Kenny Omega, and Kenny cuts this heartfelt promo basically saying, look, there is people that actually do care at AEW. And he was doing it toward Mark Davis. And then he basically looks in the direction of Will Ospreay and says, I never thought that I would see this guy as being a friend. And of course, as we both know, and we've called it on the show, we said they were going to end up being a tag team.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then we get to the next segment, which is the Hurt Syndicate cutting a promo in the ring about how they won the tag team titles. And then MVP basically says, look, if there's anybody in the back that wants to come out and challenge us, have at it. And of course, a team that I used to despise, and Colton and Austin Gunn come out. I'm like, and apparently they had been gone for a while. I don't know if it was injury or if Tony Khan just gave them time off. But you know what? It was refreshing to see them.
Mm-hmm.
And them not be with Jay White, who's in a little storyline right now with Cope, which I didn't know I was going to need that tag team. Jay White and Adam Copeland. I don't think, back to that, I don't think Moxley and Claudio know what they got themselves into. For those of you that haven't watched Jay White, I highly recommend it. Because at one point, WWE really wanted Jay White. They really wanted Jay White. They really wanted Will Ospreay. But both ended up, of course, as we see in
AEW.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, the Guns come out and they're like, oh, we want our titles back. And they made the match for next week. Hurt Syndicate against the Guns for the AEW tag team titles. And I'm sorry, I have no respect for MVP. The comments he made after, he's like, he called them the you know what boys. Y'all should know the word I'm trying to say. I legitimately cannot say it on here because we will get yes, we will get this video might get taken down if I say it. But I'd love to see the Guns win the tag team titles, but I feel like they're not going to do the same thing to the Hurt Syndicate that they did the Private Party. And that's where I do give MVP credit, though, because he did kind of shout out Private Party and tell him, and basically say, good job.
Are they facing off against each other in Australia?
No, the Hurt Syndicate and the Guns next Wednesday.
Okay.
Which will be doing a
watch
along for AEW. We can't physically show video, but we will have it on in the background and be chit chatting with everybody.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, next week, like I said, I want to see the Guns one, but I feel like they're not going to do the same thing to Hurt Syndicate that they did to Private Party, where they win the titles and they only defend them once and they lose them. I feel like they're going to try to build Hurt Syndicate up to be this like team that nobody could beat, and then eventually somebody, maybe Hounds of Hell, maybe the Learning Tree, which they do not need to have titles. The Learning Tree, no. Jericho needs to drop his title. Maybe the Callis family, which I'm sorry, I don't think they need to have titles either. I think Takeshita needs to lose his title. Okada's not in the Well, we'll get to Okada in a little bit because he had a run-in before the show with Buddy Matthews. But anyway, so then we get to there's of course MJF comes out. He's cutting the promo talking about Jeff Jarrett and how he tried to warn Jeff Jarrett that wait. Hangman Page was cutting a promo backstage and he was interrupted by Max Caster. Max Caster, what are you doing? Did you see what Hangman Page did to Christopher Daniels? He ended Christopher Daniels' career. Do you want the same thing to happen to you? You're running on thin ice. Big time thin ice.
Ooh, be careful. Hey. Shh. Hey. Shh. Thank you. Good, buddy.
And then so anyway, MJF's in the middle of his promo, and then Max Caster decides to come out to the ring when I guess Hangman Page thought that Max Caster went out to his car, and then he hides behind MJF because he knows he hears Hangman Page's music. Hangman Page comes out face to face with MJF. Anyway, Max Caster runs through the crowd, tries to get away from Hangman Page. Chases him down. But then we get back. So MJF continues his promo, and he's just running down everybody, including talking about and then Dustin Rhodes comes out, and I could tell Dustin Rhodes was not having any of what MJF was saying. And MJF called Adam Hangman Page a hack.
That's right. Yeah, I'm reading my notes, but yep.
MJF, do you even know what that means? Like, really? I feel like MJF and his promos, it's like stale. He uses the same verbiage every week that he gives a promo.
Yep.
Like,
I saw an article or a YouTube video about that they were tired of that. He said he says the same stuff over and over again every week. Yeah.
Like, can you come up with something different to use in your promos? Instead of using the same verbiage and like talking about the same thing. And like I said, I could tell something was because I was watching AEW earlier. I had it on before we got on, and I saw the promo between Dustin Rhodes and MJF. And MJF struck a chord when he brung up Owen Hart again. And Dustin's like, you never talk about somebody that's not here anymore. And then what really set Dustin off is when MJF said, "Oh, you're just a shell of your baby brother that's in WWE." And I'm like, you just crossed the line, MJF. You don't ever bring somebody's family into it.
Yep, you sure did.
One of these days, he's going to, how do I say this? He's going to learn. He's going to learn a painful lesson that you don't talk about people's family. Yeah, now, I didn't realize Dustin Rhodes was 55 years old.
It says, you took 37 years of blood, sweat, and tears to get out of your daddy's shadow. Again, you don't bring up another legend.
No, like you don't. Rhodes either. Well, and Dusty's not even alive anymore.
No. He passed away early 2000s, I think. He's been gone quite a while.
And how I know that is NXT has a tag team tournament named after him.
Okay.
The Dusty Cup. But no, you never talk about people's family, especially the last name Rhodes.
Correct.
Because that's asking for a butt whooping.
Mm-hmm.
And one of these, it's coming. And when it happens, come back to this episode of the podcast where we talked about it. MJF is playing with fire, literally. Somebody, one of these days, he's going to talk about somebody's family, and they are just going to. Dustin snapped, but I think he held back.
Well, it's funny too, but he goes after Jeff Jarrett and Dustin Rhodes, being that they're both, elder sportsmen as far as I'm concerned in wrestling, because, Dustin's 55, and I'm not sure how old Jeff Jarrett is, but I mean,
I think Jeff Jarrett's in like his 60s or 70s.
Yeah, so he's up there in age too. So it's funny how
they have a lot more lineage in the wrestling business than MJF.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And they have a lot more knowledge than he does.
Correct.
And Jeff Jarrett tried to tell MJF that, and MJF didn't want to
hear it.
No, he didn't want to listen. So then we get to a backstage segment of Harley Cameron basically mocking Mercedes Moné, which I'm sorry, I found it hysterical. It was funny to me. The thing that I found most amusing about that whole segment is Harley Cameron didn't freeze at all when Mercedes Moné's door opened and she came out and started talking.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just like, and I'm sorry, Mercedes Moné, I liked her in WWE. No, I don't like her in AEW. I feel like she's turning into like Jon Moxley. She has all these titles and she's not defending them. And she says she's the best TBS champion ever. I disagree. I think there would be people out there in AEW, other women that would say, no, that's not necessarily the truth. That you're the best woman, the best TBS champion. Ask Jamie Hayter, ask Julia Hart, ask anybody. Saraya, which I've heard she might be going back to WWE when her contract's up. Which that's why we really haven't seen her on AEW TV. So then anyway, we get to continue.
She must have been cleared, but with that neck surgery that she had.
Did she have another neck surgery?
No. I'm just saying the original neck surgery that she had, similar to what Edge had and what Big E had. Similar surgery.
Yeah. So then we get to the main event, and it was. Oh no! Then we get to the New York Minute with Jericho and the Learning Tree.
Mm-hmm.
And Big Bill says, "Oh, since Powerhouse Hobbs, since you don't want to show up, I'll come and find you." Big Bill, do you know what you're getting yourself into? I understand you're tall, but that don't mean. What's the saying? The bigger the person,
the harder they fall.
Mm-hmm. Big Bill, that's gonna be you. Just wait till Powerhouse Hobbs is cleared. You have messed up. Just ask a Dog Callis family what happens when you betray somebody like Powerhouse Hobbs or Kenny Omega or Will Ospreay. That's why I think nobody likes the Callis family, because All they are is a bunch of dirtbags that think they run AEW just like the Young Bucks did. And where have the Young Bucks been? They haven't showed up for work. Do you find that kind of weird?
Last time I saw the Young Bucks is when Sting and Darby Allin were a tag team, and Sting retired, obviously, and they beat the you-know-what out of Darby Allin. So, yeah, it's been a long time since I've seen the Young Bucks.
And they were supposed to be EVPs.
Yeah.
I know they went to New Japan and won the tag team titles over there. But that doesn't give you the right to just skip out and not come to where you actually work.
Correct.
I don't care that you're EVPs. You still need to show up for work.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
And Young Bucks, if you're watching this, I'm sorry. Y'all need to show up for work. Stop skipping work. And then we get to the main event, which was Swerve versus Ricochet.
Mm-hmm.
What a match. I don't think this feud's over, though. What does it say in your notes?
It says Ricochet hit him with a shooting star press to the spine. Targeted with the house call. Ricochet kind of with a low blow. There's another,
of course,
callous move.
Which I'm going to say this. I wouldn't be surprised at some point if Ricochet joins the Don Callis family.
Yeah, it says Ricochet countered with a low blow, then the spirit gun picking up the pin. Ricochet took the embassy robe from Prince Nala, put on and walked off with it. So that's what was the end of the match. So yeah, I have a funny feeling that
this feud's far from over.
Yeah. I was gonna say I don't think it's
you don't take over. What was it from Prince Nana?
The robe?
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
That's asking for trouble.
Yeah.
I think they might do like a best of 3, and the third match is no rules. Anything goes, no holds bar. Because Ricochet, I'm surprised he didn't use the scissors.
Yeah. You talked about that, Bud, on Tuesday. You talked about that. Yep.
Him and his little scissors that he's infatuated with.
And how callous would it be, Bud, if he used his scissors on the robe and cut the robe up? Just saying.
You know what? I didn't think of that. Yeah, I did not think of that.
That's something that's a storyline that they could go with. But I agree with you. I think.
He's already tried to slice Prince Nana's neck with the scissors.
Okay.
He had him at knife point at one point, and it drew Swerve to the back I don't know if it was catering. He had him in a secluded spot.
Okay.
Yeah, but like you said, I wouldn't be surprised if they go with that storyline where he cuts up the robe.
Or maybe what it
is.
Or
maybe they do a storyline like they did with Triple H and Randy Orton and WWE, where they have Ricochet show up at Swerve's house.
Yeah. There you
go. His
go.
actual house. Because that's to call back to an old feud for Swerve, which Swerve had his feud with Hangman Page. They did that, but they had Hangman Page go to Swerve Strickland's childhood house and light it on fire. Yep, and to me, I think that was a little too far, but who am I to say? Who am I to say that? Overall, I would say Dynamite was actually pretty good this week.
I think it sets up a lot, Bud, for the pay-per-view in Australia. So I think it
See, it's a pay-per-view, but it's gonna be televised. It's not gonna be.
Oh, okay. So then it's a. Well, they don't even call it pay-per-view anymore. What do they call it in the WWE now?
PLE.
PLE. Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, it sets up for so they have Dynamite next Wednesday. And then next Saturday instead of Collision is gonna be the Grand Slam Australia after the NBA All-Star festivities on Saturday, which is, I'm sorry, that's stupid. You should be doing the AEW stuff before the NBA because nobody's going to be up. I don't think the NBA thing gets over until 10 or 11 o'clock.
Yeah, that's gonna cut back on eyeballs on AEW.
Yep. But we're probably going to be reviewing it the following Tuesday. So now why don't we get to our future feuds? And I'll let you start first.
I've got 3 that I picked out. First one is Kyle Fletcher versus Will Ospreay. The second one, if they show,
and tell me how you would get to these feuds. Like, how would you set them up?
It says, but in my notes that Fletcher betrayed Ospreay at Wrestle Dream, won a big match against him at Full Gear, so kind of be a revenge match for Ospreay, being that he's lost 2 big matches to Fletcher. So I think that's how you'd set that up. Now, what happened in the next couple months? Probably not, because Will Ospreay's in a storyline right now. So I don't see that happening anytime soon.
Well, he's going against Kyle Fletcher and Konosuke Takeshita at Grand Slam Australia.
Oh, okay. Well, then maybe that'll be
maybe that'll lead to their one-on-one.
Yeah.
So what's your second feud and how do you get to it?
The second one is a tag team, but you just mentioned that needs to show up for work. The Young Bucks and Private Party. Now, back last year, they feuded with each other in 2024. Private Party won the AEW Tag Team Championships. So I think outside of now, you have MVP's boys that have the belts. But I think you can't write off Private Party. Now, you have the Guns in there now, too. So if the Young Bucks can show up for work, I think you got a rivalry between them and Private Party in the future as a payback for Private Party winning the tag team championships. The last one I have, actually, I have a few more. There's a bunch of them on here. How about MJF and Daniel Garcia?
Oh.
MJF attacked Garcia last year. They had a big match at All Out last year. So I could see those two going back, and someone out there needs to shut MJF up. Somebody.
Yes, I couldn't agree more.
So I think Daniel Garcia might be that guy to shut him up for a while, so we don't have to hear those same boring promos over and over on Dynamite and the other show that AEW has. So yeah,
Collision. Because they went away with Rampage. I've got 3 as well. Off the top of my head, I could think of right off rip MJF versus Hangman Page, because I feel like they haven't feuded yet.
Okay.
And I feel like their promo battles would be good because Hangman Page always changes up what he says in his promos. He doesn't say the same thing all the time like MJF. And it doesn't have to, I'm going to say this right off rip. It doesn't have to be for a title. they could do a non-title feud with the winner potentially getting a shot at either the AEW title or one of the other titles in the men's division, like the Continental title or the whatever the belt is that Takeshita holds. Oh wait, that's Continental. Trying to think of what Okada holds.
North American.
So it's something like that.
That's NXT, I think. That's NXT.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But and then Okada, I think, and I might be foreshadowing this because I know they're supposed to have a match at Grand Slam Australia. But how about a feud between Okada and either Buddy Matthews or Brody King?
Yeah.
Because Brody King, and to those of you that watch the podcast, if you haven't seen a Brody King match, highly recommend looking up look up his match that he had on Dynamite this week with Buddy Matthews. For a big guy, he's agile in the ring. And it's freaky. So that's my second one. And then my third one is you talked about them, the Young Bucks. Boys, you need to show up for work. How about the Young Bucks versus the Guns? Or you do a triple threat between the Young Bucks, the Guns, and maybe Private Party?
Or the Hurt Syndicate?
For the titles.
Or a Fatal 4-Way?
Yeah.
Titles?
And then, wait, you know what we forgot? We forgot the little rivalry that's going on between Samoa Joe, Hook.
Oh, yeah, that was in my notes, bud. That was in my notes. Yeah. Yep, I saw that. It was in my notes. That was in my notes. Let me find. There we go. Right.
I just have one question. What was Christian doing watching in the background? Why didn't he go in there and help out
Hook?
No, Kip Sabian and Nick Wayne.
Oh, that's right. Yep. There you go. Yep. Because he's a coward. He's a coward. That's what he is. He's a coward. Yeah.
Yeah, he is. But yeah, he'll stoop to the level of attacking people from behind.
Mm-hmm.
But yet, when his people are getting attacked, he just stands there and does nothing.
No, I'll let him get their butts kicked.
And you could see him poking his head in through the door. I'm like, why was he just standing there doing nothing? It just doesn't. It doesn't register in my brain at all. It's like, come on, what? And he's holding that contract hostage. He can cash in at any time. Is he waiting till Moxley loses the title to cash in?
Is he waiting, Bud, until Cope wins the title? You know, those two have a.
You know what? I didn't think of that.
Edge and Christian. He came over to AEW because of Christian Cage. So yeah, maybe he's waiting.
Yeah,
Moxley loses to
that
Cope.
Didn't even didn't even register in my brain.
And then he cashes in that contract knowing that he could take it away from Cope. That's my thought process. So
I wouldn't be surprised if that's what happens. Is he waits till somebody else wins the title, whether it be Cope, whether it be Jay White, whether it be Orange Cassidy.
Mm-hmm.
Then he cashes in and wins the title and holds it hostage because he's got his two little goonies with him, and Nick Wayne and Kip Sabian, which what's the point of having Kip Sabian? Kip Sabian does nothing except help them win. I don't think he's wrestled in a match in the last year and a half.
He's the Carlito of the group.
Yes, he is. That's actually accurate. He's the Carlito of their group. He does nothing.
Just gets in them, is an interference, helps them win matches.
Yep. And then Mama Wayne does nothing either.
No. Yep. Correct.
She's just a statue. And I have another question. You know who else hasn't showed up for work? Jack Perry.
Oh yeah.
Where's he been?
Maybe Khan's giving him some break. That's a good question. Good question.
I haven't seen him. Maybe he's giving Daniel Garcia time off. And then the big one, where's Ricky Starks?
Yeah.
I got a feeling.
It's funny too how these superstars, and again, their competition with WWE, which we also talk about, but I wouldn't want my big stars to be off of TV for too long, because what fans do, and wrestling fans, they get stale, and if they're gone too long,
they forget,
and you bring them back at the wrong time, they get booed because he or she can finally show back up. Oh, but it's been 3 months. We forgot about you. We got somebody new.
Yeah, that's like Jack Perry. He shows up maybe once or twice a year, and then he just snaps his fingers like Thanos and disappears. And then he comes back 2 or 3 months later, and people are like, what's the point of even having him? He does nothing.
Correct.
Except for hurt people.
Mm-hmm.
That just gave me a thought. Put him in a Hurt Syndicate.
There you go. Yeah.
And like we just said a minute ago, would we be surprised at all if Ricochet joins one of these factions?
I could see him joining Hurt Syndicate, but in all reality, I could see that happening.
Either Hurt Syndicate or the Callis family.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe an outside shot at joining the Patriarchy.
Yeah.
Because that would give them they would become a legitimate group if they got Ricochet. I can't take them serious right now. There's 3 factions I can't take serious at AEW. I can't take Hurt Syndicate serious. And no, it's not to deal with Lashley and Shelton Benjamin. It's to do with MVP. Don't get me wrong, he's a good manager, but he should not be anywhere near getting in the ring.
Yes, true.
Because he's way overstepped his bounds. He's out of his prime. So that's 1. 2, the Don Callis family. And you've heard both of us have said ad nauseum that the Don Callis family is just a bunch of scums.
Yep.
That have nothing better to do than trying to ruin people's lives in AEW. Mm-hmm. So that's 2. 3, and I think we both agree on this. What's the point of the learning tree?
To keep Jericho relevant.
Yeah, because if he goes as a singles competitor, people are going to forget about him.
Yep, keep Jericho relevant.
How much longer are they going to stay a faction?
That's a good question.
Because you know how Jericho is. We saw it at WWE when he tried to team up with Kevin Owens. How that ended up working. Not really well. Then he was in a faction when he first got to AEW. And how did that work? Not well. He ended up turning on them. So that's strike 2. And now let's see if he stays with Brian Keith and Big Bill. I have a sneaky feeling, and I don't know if if AEW would do this, but Enzo Amore is technically a free agent because he's out on the indies doing stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Why wouldn't you bring him into AEW for maybe a trial run and have him reunite with Big Bill and see what happens with that?
It's a possibility.
Because I've heard that Enzo Amore has fixed his issues he had with, because we all know when he was in WWE what happened with him and Big Cass.
Mm-hmm.
But I think both of them have evolved and changed, obviously. And I wouldn't mind seeing them. And then you have Big Bill, if it happens, turn on Jericho.
Yeah.
And then you have and then it's just Brian Keith until he decides that what he wants to do, if he wants to turn against Jericho. And then and when that happens, you have Jericho drop the ROH world title to somebody.
Yep.
And you know what? I've got one more feud. How about Briscoe versus Jericho 3?
Ooh, there you go.
For the ROH world title. And a no-holds-bar street fight.
I like that idea. I
do too, because you know what? Honestly, I like Mark Briscoe. I don't have any ill will against Mark Briscoe at all. I have no ill will against Mark Briscoe at all. He is one of the best tag team wrestlers alive, even though he's solo now, because rest in peace to his brother, Jay Briscoe. They were one of the best tag teams in the world. Don't care what company it was, AEW, WWE, New Japan, the Indies. They were one of the best tag teams ever. And I wish we would have got a mini run in WWE, the Briscoes versus maybe we did see them against the Hardys, but I wish they would have run against the Shield.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of matches they could have had if
he wouldn't have passed away. Yeah.
Yeah. So if we could look into a crystal ball and look at some free agents out there in the wrestling universe and predict whether they're going to go to AEW or stay in their current promotion. And let's start with the obvious one. And no, I'm not talking about Malachi Black, because we know Malachi Black is going to come back to WWE when his contract ends.
Mm-hmm.
I am talking about Saraya, also formerly known as Paige. Will she go back to AEW, or do you think she's done there and goes to WWE?
I'm going to say WWE, but because of what's going on now with the women's division, with all the new, obviously Charlotte's back. She came back at the Royal Rumble. I did read something before we got on the air that they're going to bring Becky back soon. So she was kind of in that same class that came up. So I would say she's going to go back to WWE. I know, like, a lot of them, like CM Punk, when he went there, they all have bad things to say. But then again, that was when Vince McMahon ran the corporation. Now Triple H is in charge. So I think everyone's starting to go, hey, I can come back now. We're good. We're good. So I can see WWE in the future.
What about like Tegan Knox? She was on the main roster, didn't really get a Didn't really get a push. Really didn't get herself put out there. Do you think she comes back to WWE now that Triple H is involved in charge, or does she go over to maybe AEW or somewhere else?
You know what? But I'm gonna go with starting with the WWE again, with the whole women's division kind of blowing up right now. And if she doesn't make it there, then I could see her going to AEW to kind of get her name out there and get the fans behind her, and then maybe make a WWE return after that. But to kind of go back, kind of like a Jordan Grace type thing. You know, she went to TNA, she made a name for herself, and now she's in WWE. So something along those lines of going somewhere else, getting your name out there, getting the fans behind you, and then coming back.
I honestly, I can see the same thing. What about like who's the one in TNA that nobody likes? Taya Valkyrie?
No. Oh, crick. Let me see real quick. I know who you're referring to. Hang on, bud. Let me look it up real quick. I know who.
Tessa Blanchard.
Tessa Blanchard. I was gonna say Taya Valkyrie. I think is a well-liked. I think wasn't she in the Royal Rumble? Wasn't Taya?
No,
Valkyrie
she's in AEW.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's Tessa Blanchard. That's the one that they don't know if they're going to be able to trust her to come up or what. It's a good question. She's in TNA, so yeah.
Could you see her leaving TNA and going to like AEW or WWE?
See, that all depends on, again, that's the thing too. Just like with Enzo Amore, when you have issues outside the ring, it's very hard to take a risk because the fans are going to just grind you about that. So if Tessa is to come to WWE, that those the stuff in the past are going to follow her. AEW, I could see Tony Khan taking a chance with that because, again, just maybe to get her back on the positive side of the fans, that's a possibility. How I would look at that. I mean, if I was her, I think I would go that route too. Is if I can't get to WWE, let me go to AEW, get back on the positive side of the fans, and then go back to WWE if you have that chance.
I would agree as well. What about? And I know he's involved in a lawsuit with Vince, but what about like John Laurinaitis? Could you see him either? Obviously, I don't think he would go back to WWE now that Triple H is running it. Could you see him going to AEW just out of spite to get back at WWE?
I would say yes, as long as he's cleared from the whole Vince trial, that type of thing. Because if they both are convicted, they're both going to prison. They're not going to jail, ladies and gentlemen. They're going to prison. So if they both,
what about Shane McMahon?
I don't think Shane would go to AEW.
Why? Because of the last name McMahon.
Yeah, I mean that would be. I mean, I know the whole alliance thing with the WCW and ECW, but that was a storyline in the WWE or WWF at that time. I think it's WWF at the time. That was a story. I can't see him or Stephanie turning their back on their dad's company.
Somebody at one point mentioned that Shane was close to signing with AEW. But then I guess things fell through and offer was taken off of the
table.
But I think that's going to wrap it up. This was a lot shorter of a podcast tonight because we were having, like I said at the beginning, we had a little bit of technical issues.
It happens.
Because I ended up getting a new microphone. And everybody, please let me know in the comments how the new microphone sounds. But we are, again, part of the NGSE Sports Network. NGSesports.com. And we will be having a AEW watch along on Wednesday, February 12th, which is next Wednesday. And you will still get your main episode, your 2 episodes of the Wrestling is Awesome podcast. One on Tuesday, which will be WWE, AEW from this past week. Oh, actually AEW, but it's going to be a preview of what we think might happen on AEW next Wednesday. And then Raw review, SmackDown review. And then we will do the same thing next Thursday night with a podcast for AEW Dynamite, reviewing AEW Dynamite and talking about everything going on in AEW. For Bradley and Alec, we are signing off. We will see everybody next Tuesday.
Yep.